What if I told you that the greatest wealth transfer in human history was orchestrated by a ghost? Look closely at the screen. 1.1 million Bitcoin. At today's market valuation, that is over $80 billion sitting completely untouched in digital vaults for more than 15 years. Just process that for a second. $80 billion. No bank controls it. No government can freeze it. No geopolitical sanction can touch it. And the person who holds the ultimate cryptographic keys to this absolute empire vanished without a single trace in April 2011. For a decade and a half, the entire world has hunted Satoshi Nakamoto. Ruthless journalists have ruined the lives of innocent men. Federal intelligence agencies have traced IP addresses across the globe. Brilliant cryptographers have analyzed every single word he ever typed, looking for linguistic fingerprints, but they were all looking in the wrong place. They were looking for a greedy coder who was waiting for the right time to cash out. They should have been looking for a cipher, a dead man's switch. Because on April 12, 2026, something impossible happened. A tiny fragmented piece of data buried deep inside a forgotten rusted server in an Icelandic data center finally decrypted. And it didn't just point to a geographical location, it pointed to a heavily guarded secret that was never meant to see the light of day. But before we expose the final terrifying piece of this puzzle, we have to understand the perfect crime of the 21st century. We have to go back to the Genesis. Let's rewind. October 31st, 2008. The global financial system is in a state of absolute freefall. Lehman Brothers has just vanished in a cloud of toxic debt. Central banks are printing trillions of dollars out of thin air to bail out corrupt institutions. Regular, hard-working people are losing their homes, their life savings, their pensions, and their entire futures. The world is angry. And right in the middle of this unprecedented financial chaos, a quiet, unassuming email drops into an obscure cryptography mailing list. It contains a 9-page PDF document titled Bitcoin, a peer-to-peer electronic cash system. It was elegant, it was mathematically flawless, but more importantly, it was a silent declaration of war against the modern banking system. The author called himself Satoshi Nakamoto. He proposed a decentralized ledger, a currency that required no trust, no central authority, and no middlemen. But who exactly was he? Early developers and cryptographic pioneers who communicated with him via email and forum posts immediately noticed strange behavioral habits. Satoshi wrote in perfect formal British English, using words like bloody hard, favor, and color. Yet his computer timestamps and posting schedules almost perfectly matched the Eastern time zone of the United States. He worked furiously, submitting complex code at random, erratic hours of the night, almost as if he never slept, or, as some investigators later theorized, as if Satoshi wasn't just one person at all. As Bitcoin grew from a worthless digital experiment into a multi-billion-dollar financial juggernaut, the media grew desperate. They needed a face, they needed a target. Over the years, the press paraded a circus of prime suspects, destroying privacy and lives in the process. In 2014, a major publication claimed they had found him, Dorian Nakamoto, a quiet, retired Japanese-American physicist living in California. News helicopters swarmed his humble home. Reporters chased his car down the highway. But it wasn't him. He was just an ordinary man with a matching surname, completely bewildered by the digital frenzy surrounding him. Then came Craig Wright, an Australian computer scientist who boldly and aggressively claimed he was the creator. He sought the fame, the patents, and the glory, only to be systematically dismantled by cryptographic experts and ultimately defeated in a UK High Court in 2024. Then there was Hal Finney. Hal was a brilliant, legendary cypherpunk and the very first person to receive a Bitcoin transaction directly from Satoshi. Hao was a true visionary, and for years people suspected he was Satoshi talking to himself to establish the network. Tragically, Hao was diagnosed with ALS and passed away, taking his secrets with him. But strict linguistic analysts noted that Hao's coding style and writing habits did not perfectly match Satoshi's rigid C++ architecture. Nick Szabo designed BitGold, a direct precursor to Bitcoin, but adamantly denied being the creator. Everyone had a theory, but every single theory had a fatal flaw. They all assumed Satoshi was a living, breathing person who was sitting back enjoying the spectacle of his creation. What if Satoshi couldn't come forward? What if the absolute silence wasn't a choice, but a matter of sheer survival? To understand the disappearance, we have to look at the exact moment the ghost evaporated. By late 2010, Bitcoin was gaining dangerous traction. It was no longer a nerd's playground. It was being used on the Silk Road to facilitate anonymous, untraceable transactions for narcotics. The US government was waking up. In December 2010, WikiLeaks, facing a global banking blockade, announced they would start accepting Bitcoin to fund their operations. Satoshi broke his usual calm demeanor and posted a frantic message on the forums. He wrote, "The swarm is headed towards us. WikiLeaks has kicked the hornet's nest." Satoshi knew the project was not ready for the full wrath of the United States government. Then, the fatal blow. Gavin Andresen, one of Bitcoin's lead developers, publicly announced that he had been invited to give a presentation about Bitcoin at the headquarters of the CIA. For Satoshi, this was the ultimate red alert. The intelligence apparatus of the most powerful nation on Earth was now actively looking at his code. On April 23, 2011, Satoshi sent his final verified email to a fellow developer. It was brief, cold, and final. It simply read, "I've moved on to other things. It's in good hands with Gavin and everyone." And just like that, the architect of the digital future pulled the plug, wiped his drives, and disconnected from the internet forever. For 15 years, the wallet containing 1.1 million Bitcoin remained a silent digital tomb. Until the April 2026 data leak. A highly specialized team of independent cyber forensic analysts, known as the Genesis Project, was digging through the archived, decaying logs of a long-dead cypherpunk darkboard. Deep inside a server cluster located in a cold storage facility in Iceland, they uncovered an anomalous PGP signature. This signature was attached to a heavily encrypted, deleted post from exactly 1 week before the famous Bitcoin white paper was originally published. It was a digital ghost, a fragment of data that should have been permanently erased. The forensic team spent months brute forcing the packet layers, peeling back the encryption. The metadata didn't trace back to a quiet suburb in California. It didn't trace back to an academic institution in Australia. It traced directly to a highly secure residential proxy subnet located in East London. But here is the massive twist that no investigator, no journalist, and no federal agent ever saw coming. The IP address wasn't registered to a cryptography lab. It was registered to an encrypted proxy network built by an underground collective. When the forensic team finally decrypted the core packet layers, they found a localized alias interacting with the earliest unreleased Bitcoin test nodes. The alias was simply named Elias. But Elias wasn't a single rogue genius. It was a digital dead man switch. You see, the code compiled by this alias had a specific compile environment that was absolutely identical to Satoshi's original 0.1 release. But the rigorous linguistic and behavioral analysis of the recovered chat logs revealed something chilling. The tone was deeply fragmented. The bizarre mix of British spelling, the American timestamps, the erratic superhuman sleep schedule. It finally made sense. The investigation concluded that Satoshi Nakamoto was never a single cypherpunk. It was a highly compartmentalized, military-grade operation. 3 brilliant minds acting as one entity. One mind wrote the peerless cryptography. One mind built the complex network architecture. And one mind wrote the philosophical white paper. But a secret kept by 3 people is only safe if 2 of them are gone. According to the 2026 forensic trace, the operational node named Elias belonged to the final surviving architect of the project, an architect who realized in 2011 that if the creator of Bitcoin were ever truly unmasked, global governments would not just subpoena them, they would hunt them down as an existential threat to global national security, viewing the creator as a financial terrorist who possessed the power to destabilize the fiat currency system. So Elias did the only thing that could keep the network truly decentralized and immune to government coercion. He destroyed the private cryptographic keys to the Genesis wallets. He locked away $80 billion permanently, intentionally, burning the greatest fortune in human history to ensure that no single human being could ever control the market or be tortured for the access codes. And then he systematically erased his own digital footprint, blending seamlessly back into the invisible shadows of society. We may now have the proxy logs, we may have the localized alias Elias, we may even have the exact subnet grid in East London where the final code was compiled before the ghost vanished. But the true physical face of Satoshi Nakamoto remains the greatest, most flawlessly executed magic trick of the digital age. A ghost who gave the entire world a new financial operating system and then paid the ultimate staggering price of absolute anonymity. Perhaps the real question we should be asking isn't who is Satoshi Nakamoto. The real question that should keep the financial world awake at night is this: what if the investigation is wrong? What if Elias didn't destroy those keys? What if the ghost is just waiting for the perfect moment? Disclaimer: this documentary contains dramatized narrative elements based on real historical events, open-source cyber investigations, and speculative theories surrounding the April 2026 Internet anomalies. It is entirely for educational and entertainment purposes and does not claim to expose the legal identity of any living individual. No actual private data was breached, and this story does not intend to defame, harm, or target any person, organization, or community.